right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday morning. It's Zoom with the principal. I'm very happy to have all of you here. So our topic this morning, this is really for our parents of seniors. Though if you are here and you are not the parent of a senior, that's quite all right. Don't worry. This will just be a little like preview of what's coming in your future. So what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to just kind of talk about those 3 stages that you guys are probably going through right now. And then maybe what you're fearing and like what it's going to be like, in a couple of months. So we're going to talk about senioritis, and senioritis is, seniors and just they're like, they don't have to do school anymore. They don't want to do anything. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to fail everything and you're not going to graduate. That fear. And then we'll talk about what to do once they leave and how to deal with the empty nest syndrome. And then also I want to finish up today talking about what it's like when they come home and you now have this adult child and how that changes the dynamic in your household. I have, my daughter is now a sophomore in college, so I have lived through all of this. So hopefully my advice is useful to all of you. Before we get started and dive into our topic, though, there's something I wanted to share with all of you. Oh, I almost ended the meeting. Got a little happy with the buttons. This is our website. You guys can all see my screen. This is our website, and I think you guys all know where my newsletter is linked on the website. So if you click here, I put this in our most recent newsletter, and this is my view. Your views doesn't look like this, but I'm logged in, so this is why my view looks like this. I want to encourage all parents to please do the panorama survey. If you have not yet done that, you just click on this link. You can indicate what language you want up here at the top. If you want to take it in English, Spanish, or Vietnamese. And then you are going to scroll down. My screen's not wanting to scroll down because it wanted me to select a language first. And you're going to scroll down. You're going to select Piedmont Hills High School. And then you're going to get started on that. So I ask that all parents please do that. If you are friends with parents that are also in the school, please encourage them to do that. Last year when we did the panorama survey in the fall and in the spring, this fall, we only had about 80 families take it. And I know we can do a lot better than that. We really do use this data, so it is very helpful. So please, if you could do that, I would very much appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to get into talking about seniors and how they are this time of year. So it depends on, a lot of this depends on the type of student you have. Right now, we are in week 1 of AP tests. So if you may have a senior who's in AP classes and you're like, no, they seem to be doing okay. Once AP tests are done, they're probably going to be done. And you'll just notice that they are checked out. They're not wanting to do any more work at school. The teachers will notice it for sure. When I was a teacher, I taught seniors. And I used to always say that like once prom happened, like they were done. Now this year, prom is actually Memorial Day weekend. It is actually the Saturday before graduation. So we stretched that out really long. But that's usually like when we get to May, seniors are like, yeah, I'm done. They start wanting to do senior pranks and do things that, doesn't always have the good behavior, which is why we had the advisors go to all of the senior classes. We send messages home about behavior of seniors and what's expected because they still have to follow all the rules and do all of that. And I think the thing about senioritis is, why do they act like this? Well, I mean, it is kind of coming to end. It's a rite of passage, graduating from high school. There's certainly, the celebratory nature of that. And they're teenagers and they celebrate in ways that we don't always maybe think are the best ways and how we would maybe want them to act. I also think a lot of times there is some fear involved, and fear of change that is coming. I have in my career have seniors totally self-sabotage themselves and end up not graduating from high school because they didn't do what they needed to do to finish out, and then they ended up not graduating, and it was total self-sabotage where they just kind of shut down because of this fear of like what's coming next and not feeling ready for that. So that's definitely something that I caution you to look out for, that if you think your child might be susceptible to that, definitely watch out for that. This is not the time to just trust that they're going to get it done. Still keep checking their grades, checking Canvas and Infinite Campus, and making sure that they're doing what they have to do to finish out this last month of school. Because unfortunately, we will have kids that don't end up graduating, that end up failing a class that's required for graduation. It happens every year. It's really, really sad. We hate that, but they do have to finish this out. So definitely, and hopefully that won't happen to you. If you are worried about that, talk to your kid, see what's going on with them. If you feel like they are worried about what's coming next, to reassure them. I think there's this like high school graduation, and as society, we put it on them that like, okay, you're about to be an adult. Like, this is your rite of passage. Like, you're going to graduate and sorry, you're going to move on and you're going to be an adult, and you're like, kind of like, they just think like all the responsibility is going to fall under their shoulders. And to a certain extent that's true. I mean, they are going to be a high school graduate. They are going to be seen in the eyes of the world as an adult. But I think it's important as a parent to still reassure them that you are still going to be their support network. You're still going to be there for them, and that you love them and that you're proud of them. I think that it's important that, as parents too, we enjoy this time. It is really exciting. I know when my daughter was graduating high school, I was like I was like, oh my gosh, just get it done. Because she was like, oh, who cares? I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, we were dragging her over the finish line, and she made it. And it was fine. But I was like, we were sweating it. So this is a time that you're probably like worried, like, oh my gosh, are they going to finish? But at the same time, excited. Graduation and that time, it is a really special thing for the parents too. It's, especially like if this is your, like with my daughter graduated, she's my oldest child. And so like going into the unknown, but if this is your last child going through high school and you're like, wow, this like phase of my life is done. That can be a really exciting time, but it also can be, really overwhelming, I think, as a parent. So I'm just going to leave me. And then if you guys, as always, if you have any questions or comments or anything, you want to put them in the chat, please do. If you are experiencing any sort of senioritis in your home, share with us so that we can, support each other. Because yeah, it's, I loved teaching seniors. I did. They were my favorite grade to teach. But that last month of school, they were a lot. They drove me crazy. I was always really happy to say goodbye to them when graduation came, because they drove me crazy that last month of school, and being like, they're like, do we just have to, like, every day, like, do we have to do anything today? We're not doing anything, right? And I'm like, yes, we have more to learn. There's a whole nother month of curriculum we're going to learn. And they're like, do we have to? And I was like, they just drove me crazy. So you may be seeing that at home. I'm pulling up an article that I have, but let's talk about how it is going to be for you guys. And when your child is moving on. Now, some of you may have that they are still going to be living with you and they're going to junior college, or they're still going to start working and they're still going to be living with you. And so you may not necessarily have the empty nest stuff going on, though it is going to change. And I'll get to that. Like, we'll touch on that also. But just if you've never heard the term empty nest syndrome, I think it's a fairly common term, but maybe you haven't heard that. It's the grief that many parents feel when their children move out of the home. It's not something that's like a clinical diagnosis like depression or anxiety or anything like that, but it is like something that's real. It's definitely something that parents can experience. They can experience sadness and loneliness and kind of grieve. Like, it's a grief period of this loss of lifestyle and, your relationship that you've had with your child that was part of your identity. And so it's very, very common. This time of your life is going to stir up, but you may be feeling right now some anxiety and worry about your child and what their future is going to hold. You're excited for them. You may be experiencing relief that they're finally done, and that your time of like sitting down and worrying about their homework and contacting their teachers and like staying up on that's about to be done. And that definitely, there's some relief that can come with that. Whew, awesome. But then also there's some sadness too, especially if you were a parent that's been super involved in school and everything, that's going to be coming to an end. So it's totally normal that you are super proud to see your child go out into the world as, an independent young adult. On the other hand, it's also totally normal that you're super worried about them and super worried about how they're going to do, and that you're sad that they're going away, that they're leaving your nest. So some common feelings that you may experience. And so just to give you guys a little bit of background, I've shared this before, but just in case you're new, because I did see some new names with us today. My daughter is like I said before, she's a sophomore in high school. She's a sophomore in college. Last year, she lived at home. She went to junior college last year. And so it wasn't until this year, this past August, that she moved out and she moved away to go to college. And so all of these feelings that I'm about to describe to you, I definitely felt them last August, September. I was feeling all of these. There's definitely very common to have experienced some loneliness, and that she's not there. And I still have my son at home, but like having that one person move out of the house, whoa, we felt it. It's amazing the difference one person makes. And especially because she was, somebody that she and I would watch TV together every night and like hang out and talk to each other. And when she was gone, yeah, there was definitely some loneliness. It's also totally normal to be feeling like having like a little bit of roller coaster ride with your emotions. I just let in Miss Gunter so she can chime in because she's gone through all this too. So there's definitely. Good morning, Yvonne. So I'm talking about the roller coaster ride of empty nest syndrome, that, you are super sad that they're gone, but then also kind of happy at the same time, because maybe there's like new freedoms and like, oh, I don't like, especially if you don't have a child left at home, and the freedom, like, I don't have to worry about making my kids dinner at night. And there's freedom that can come with that. So there can be some roller coaster of emotions. So
and then there's like some guilt that comes with that freedom. Like I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can take the kids to Red Robin and it's way cheaper now that Ethan's gone.
Yes.
I feel bad for even saying that, right? Or he would come home from college in the weekends and it would get to be like Sunday afternoon and he'd be leaving messes everywhere. And I was like actually like excited that he was going to go back. Like, it doesn't mean I don't miss him, but like the reality is it's like one less mouth to feed, right?
Yeah.
One less person to clean up after.
Another totally common thing to feel is a loss of purpose. Um, Especially if you are a stay-at-home parent, or even if you work, but you're one of those parents that like super involved in your kids' lives, and like you're the one that drives them, like drives all the friends around, you go to all of their events and all of that, that there's going to be a vacuum and a void, because that's going to go away. You don't do that in college anymore. Um, and I was actually this past weekend talking to a friend of mine. Her daughter and my daughter were very good friends. And so her daughter's also in college also. And her son, he's about to be a senior in high school. So he's a junior this year and he's about to be a senior in high school. And she is one of these like super involved parents. And she works full time, but like she like volunteers at the school. She's like always at like all the track meets, like all this stuff. She's like uber involved parent. And I was telling her like, whoa, Amy, you are going to need to get a hobby, because Caleb's going to go away to college. And what are you going to do? Like, you need to start thinking about that now. And like, how are you going to fill your time? Because I definitely see her like this loss of purpose and like having that like void, and like because of this vacuum of like, she doesn't have to do that anymore, being a real thing that she is going to have to worry about and like deal with.
Yeah, it's funny to be able to talk about this now, because was it last year now or the year before when it was all happening? Like my heart was ripped out of my chest. Like I could talk about it casually now because it's like he's back home. He decided that he didn't want to live on campus anymore. And mind you, my kid was at San Jose State. So he did move out of the house. He was 3.7 miles away. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but it still hurt me in that same way. And I think it was that whole like almost like rendered useless. Like you don't realize how much you do until you stop doing it. And
I think this was the meeting last year that you cried.
oh, for sure. Oh
I
my
was like,
God, like, I was like looking
together.
at baby pictures before the meeting.
You're the
like,
therapist. Keep it together. My God.
I was like, oh my God, my principal had to like therapy me. It was awful. And it hurt so much. Like, and I was having these feelings of like, it's so stupid now, but like, man, I wish I would have taken him to the park every time he wanted to go to the park. Like all these things where I was just too tired to do things or had other things going on. Like, I wish I didn't prioritize them. Like, it was just this whole flood of like, coulda, shoulda, woulda, kind of mentality. And, I think it's something to prepare yourself for of like, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. There's going to be some bright spots in it, but it was very, very painful. I have another social worker in the district who her son went down somewhere in Southern California. And the day after he got there, she moved him in, his appendix ruptured, right? And she had to like drive down the middle of the night. Like, and so just because they move out doesn't mean that you stop worrying, right? It's like, it's still the same, but they're further away. And we just kind of bonded over the ups and downs of the whole experience. And so hopefully you have somebody who's in the same position. Like Miss Davis and I were in it together, and it sucked and it was hard. And, but it was nice to have somebody to talk to about it, because I'm like, are these feelings, like, am I being dramatic that my son is at San Jose State? Like I can literally see the dorm from my backyard and I'm hurting so much. Like, is that normal? And we've spent almost every day together for, 18, 19 years. And it's a huge change. And, one of the things I can speak to now is that year of him being off, like on campus, was the hugest growth for him. When he went to college, he couldn't order food for himself at McDonald's. His anxiety is so high. And so to see him now, order food, have a job, pay his bills, be social, be like the star at the little elementary school he works at, like all these things that wouldn't have happened if he didn't have that opportunity to be independent. Because I didn't realize how much I kind of coddled him before he left. So it was almost like a necessity to give him space to grow. I mean, I cooked and did his laundry and all the things. And so it's painful, but the growth that you'll see when they leave is just going to astonish you. Like, I can't believe that my kid is a responsible young man. Like,
Yeah.
it's like my shining moment. Like, I'm so proud of him.
So, okay, I want to like back up because you touched on like another thing that's going to be common, for parents to experience and worry about how they are and what they're doing. And then also dealing with, kind of the loss of control because they're not with you. You don't know what time they're coming home at night. You don't know what time they're getting up in the morning. And so just that's something that like, especially if you're a parent that's like really on your kid and you know where they are at all times, not knowing and like backing off of that because you don't want to be knowing where, like, you need to give them their freedom. That's going to be important. One little piece of advice that I have for you, and this is if you don't already share, if you have an iPhone, or I'm assuming you can do it on other phones too, but if you don't already share your location with your child, do it now and have them share your location with you. It's a comfort thing. It's not that I'm keeping tabs up in my daughter. I pulled it up right now. Here she is. I don't know if you guys can see. She's in her dorm at Sonoma State right now. And I check on this like at least a couple of times a week. It's a sense of comfort to me. I'm like, oh, there she is. She's in her dorm. And so, and my friend Amy, whose daughter is also, her daughter goes to school in Santa Barbara.
Mine is
There
still
you
at
go.
home.
We still, she's like, oh, I check up. I do the same thing. And so like, and then when like times where Hannah's driving home, I can see where she is on the road. I can see like
how fast she's going.
I am like, sometimes I'm like, oh, she's going awfully fast.
Yeah. And one of the things I told him, I said, I don't care what you do. Honestly, like, you should know me by now. I don't care. But if something, God forbid, happens to you, at least I can locate you, you know. And we had a good friend of his who got in a really bad car accident. And that's the way that basically his life was saved. His mom was able to locate him and the whole thing. So he has that in his head. But I really reassured him, like, I know you're going to party. I know you're going to do these things. I know this and that. And, you know, and I kind of said, like, in your phone bill's $100 a month, and you're welcome to pay it on your own if you unload, you know, take it off your phone.
My daughter inadvertently, it was last fall, like I want to say it was around Thanksgiving. She inadvertently stopped sharing her location with me, and I couldn't. I was like, oh my God. And then I like had this whole like, did she do it on purpose? Is she like doesn't want me to know? And so finally I said something to her, and I was like, and I did it kind of in a joking way, like, hey, how am I going to know that you're not dead if you don't share the location? And she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. And then she shared it again. But
the only problem with it is that it shares mine back. So he's like, Mom, you've been at Marshall's for 3 hours. Like, come on. But it's that sense of comfort of like, you know, because you will worry, it doesn't turn off. He does tell me some things that he did when he was living in the dorms that horrify me. You know, like, oh yeah, I walked, you know, it's downtown San Jose. It's not exactly the safest place, you know, and he, oh yeah, I used to walk to that Jack in the Box at 3 a.m. And I'm like, what? Like all the things that I'm glad I didn't know at the time, but you know.
Okay, so I came across this article that, you know, and it talks about like all of like the common things you experience with empty nest syndrome. And like, according to this, there's this book that according to this article is widely renowned. It's called Beyond the Mommy Years. I have never heard of this book actually. But according to this book, there are 3 stages of empty nest syndrome. There's number 1, grief, when you're first leaving and you're really sad, and like there's the emptiness in the house, and it is sad. Like grief's totally normal. And then after a few months, there's relief that, you know, you're not spending as much time, you know, at dinner. Like it's a little bit easier. You know, even if you still have kids in the house, like that one less kid that you're having to like make food for and like worry about, you know, constantly on a day-to-day basis, there is relief. With me, because my daughter and I shared a bathroom, I cleaned out the bathroom and made it like perfect for me. And so now it's just my bathroom. And that brings me to the final stage, which is joy. And the joy I have with my own bathroom, I love it. And now every time she comes home and all her crap comes back in the bathroom, it like stresses me out. And I'm always like, when are you leaving and getting all your stuff out of the bathroom? Because you're driving me crazy.
One of my greatest joys was that he didn't leave. He used to make a smoothie in the morning and leave the blender just in the sink without even water in it and all the things. And so now that he's back, I'm like, I did really enjoy that. Like
the blender wasn't there. Yeah. So there's like the little like find joy in the little annoyances that your child, like in the little things that they do. Like my daughter cannot get a Q-tip in the trash can if her life depended on it. There, you will find the joy and that sort of thing not happening anymore.
One of the questions that it kept coming up for me as I was thinking about this meeting today is, would you have done anything differently to better prepare your kid for being out of the house now that you can see clearly and look back on it?
I would have spent more time teaching her how to cook. Ooh, good. And like simple meals that she can just do on her own. She has not, the dorm food at Sonoma State apparently is not very good. Oh, no. And the cafeteria, and so she does not like that. So I feel like in her year away, she's eaten a lot of Taco Bell. Because there's Taco Bell right across the street from Sonoma State, and she, I think, eats there at least 5 times a week, which is a lot of Taco Bell. And so I wish like that would be one thing. And so parents, some advice for some things to do over the summer before they leave, teach them like simple, easy meals that they can do in a dorm room, where they maybe just have a microwave. Maybe they've got a hot plate, but like, what could they make that's pretty simple and still nutritious and healthy? Things like smoothies and like that sort of thing. And so that, I wish I had done more of that.
That's a good point. I think for me, it would have been like, I would have given him just a little bit more freedom to be out and about on his own. Like I remember one time he wanted to take the bus somewhere, but I like insisted on giving him a ride, and just always like my own anxiety kind of overshadowed my ability to like give him freedom. And so then to find out that he went from me doing everything for and with him to like being on the streets at 3 a.m. I think I could have prepared him better to be independent in that way, which would have in turn made him a little street safer than I think I let him be. So that's really the only thing I can think of. I could have done a better job with that, but again, that was my own stress and anxiety and worry for him, not realizing that I was making it harder for him to be independent.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up the, and then we're going to move on to like having an adult child in a minute, but wrapping up in empty nest, I want to give some advice on, how to cope with emptiness, because you're going to experience it. We all experience it. You're going to go through this. So how, some tips on how to cope with this. My first tip is to make social connections, like reconnect with old friends. A lot of times as parents, when we're in the thick of parenting, we maybe lose touch and let some friendships go. And so reconnecting with some friends, that can really help when you are experiencing that loneliness and like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like having that can be very helpful. I also like, if definitely, this is always always advice that we would give, but if you find that like next year, like when you're going through this and it's like you're having a really hard time coming out of it and you can't, like you're really struggling with that grief, definitely get some professional help and talk to somebody and see a counselor. That would definitely be helpful. Like that, what I always want to put the caveat, like, this is normal to feel this way, but if you feel like it's extreme, like listen to yourself and get help if you need it. Taking on a new hobby, maybe even this is, if you haven't been working, maybe you're thinking about going back, and, going back to work. But if you're already working, because you are going to have more time on your hands, even if you still have kids at home, you're going to have more time on your hands. So thinking about a new hobby that you can take up, and things to spend your time with. Yvonne, have you taken up a new hobby?
A new hobby? No, but my day I filled with like hanging out with friends. I think I overshot. I like spent too much time doing fun stuff with friends. So no, I think I'm good.
The next piece of advice that you can do is reconnect with your partner. My husband would love this.
I know mine too. I'm like, ooh, I didn't think of that one.
But like, this is like, especially if like you don't have kids left in the house anymore, that like, this is a time to spend quality time with your significant other, and reignite that romance in your relationship.
Yeah. If that frightens you, you're normal. Don't worry. Because we wondered that too. Like, okay, when all three are gone, like, what are we going to talk about? And do we even still know or like each other? Like, that's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
I think that I remember my mom telling me that once my brother and I both moved out, that like, yeah, she and my dad had to like rediscover their relationship, and that was a new and get to know each other again. Rupert says have more babies. Rupert, that's only for you.
That's your strategy. I'm too old for that
Your nest
strategy.
can never be empty if you keep putting more babies in the nest.
So Rupert, I want to remind you of the joy that comes at the end of the empty nest. That it's okay.
Yeah,
I understand.
I could have been there in 4 years, but now I'm not.
No, you're not.
I'll take my chances with my empty nest. I don't want to have any more babies.
Well, fair enough. I don't have them. I raise them.
That's true.
I don't like carrying a baby is a lot.
Yeah. I
right.
strangely had a dream last night that I was going to have a baby, and I literally woke up like a panic. So that's it was very. I don't know why. I think it was a movie I was watching, and I'm like, nope.
It's probably my movie.
I can imagine. Okay, so my next tip is to practice self-care. Practicing self-care is actually our topic for I'm looking at the calendar. I think it's our topic for May 24th. I think that's our last Zoom with the principal for the year. And it's the topic of our last one is practicing self-care. So we're going to talk about that. But then also finally, like, and this seems like, well, of course you are, but like, think of this as the positive, like you're going to keep in touch with your kids, and like, it's not like you're never going to talk to them again. You're going to be talking to them in a different way. I like to, I text with my daughter all the time. And like, I love to send her pictures of the pets. She misses the pets most of all,
Of course.
way more than she misses, us. She definitely misses the pets. So I send her pictures of the pets all the time. And she loves that. So just, think like of ways that you can keep in touch with your kids, and go visit them and see them in their element, which is bringing us to our final, phase of this conversation, having an adult child and what it's like to have your child now be an adult. And I think, and I said this throughout parenting, that the phase that they are in is always my favorite phase. Like whatever phase they're currently in is always my favorite. And I think having an adult child is my favorite. And it's really lovely, like to see your child as an adult and a person out in the world. And like, I love talking to my daughter about what she's studying in college. And then when she was working, like what she was experiencing at work and how she was like seeing, like the way she sees the world is just it's really amazing. And it's just really like that, like, there's a feeling of satisfaction of like, I have raised this human being and she's pretty amazing. And like, I just love that. And I love seeing just what she finds joy in. And yeah. What do you think, Yvonne? You have an adult child too.
You know what I think is amazing is that it's a time in their life where they choose to spend time with us. He
Yep.
chooses to spend time with me. It's like back in the day, it was like he had to be there because we lived together. But the fact that he chooses to like have dinner with me and spend time with me and go shopping with me, it's like, that feels pretty cool. Like that, I know that we have such a relationship that he enjoys my company and likewise. And so I think that feels pretty good. I think watching him be responsible in a lot of ways with money, with his health, with all these things, it makes me feel like I did something right. He'll be going into his 3rd year of college. He's a business major at San Jose State, and then has recently told my husband and I that he wants to do business law. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, did I maybe raise a lawyer? Like, what is going on? Like, it feels so good. It's like, I was so worried about him just being able to order McDonald's, and the fact that he could potentially one day be doing something like that just like blows my mind. I don't know if it'll happen, but just the fact that he's thinking all these things, it's shocking. And I'm like, okay, it was tough. But I did something right. It feels like an accomplishment. So that's been pretty awesome too.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like they do want to actually spend time with you. It's nice.
Like she
Yeah.
doesn't have to come home if she doesn't want to, right?
Yeah, no, she doesn't. It's like this past week she came home, she's like, oh, it's your birthday, I'll come home. And I was like, oh, thanks.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
It's a neat time. I didn't anticipate all the positive. I just remember thinking of how sad I was going to be when it happened and all these things. And it makes me reflect on my relationship with my parents of like, my mom was like literally the most obnoxious person on the planet when I was 16 years old. And now like not a day goes by that I don't reach out to her and have a conversation and share everything with her. And so watching that kind of same change with my kids is pretty darn cool.
yeah, for sure.
Rupert,
Yeah,
you'll find out in like 25 years.
yeah, Rupert, someday. Of course, you
Then
keep
I'll be
having
a
babies
grandpa.
and then, you know.
Be a grandpa by then, and then I'll be having babies from
That's true.
be the greatest. I did the math. I'll never have an empty nest. And I love it.
You won't. That's one strategy, everyone. That's definitely a strategy to avoid.
It's not for everyone, but it works for us.
That's true. I love it. I love it.
We tease because we love.
Oh yeah. Like, yeah.
Okay, parents, any questions that you have about like stuff that you're worried about, that we can, even if it's practical, like how do you move them into the dorm? Right now I'm having to like deal with like, how am I going to move her out of the dorm, because she has to move out of the dorm in a couple of weeks, and then we have like a week that she's going to be home, and then we have to move her into a house that she's renting, and it's a lot of moving that we're having to do.
How
So
exciting.
I know I keep like seeing empty boxes and I'm like, oh, I could use that box.
It happens fast, everybody. You're gonna blink and it's here.
It does go by really, really fast. One thing that also has been really, and I don't know, Yvonne, if you experienced this with your boys, like when Ethan moved out and then he would come when he came back. And we're going to actually talk next week. I'm giving you a little foreshadowing of our topic next week. We're going to talk about siblings next week. This was a suggestion from a parent, because a parent had emailed me asking if we had ever done a topic on siblings, and we've never done a topic on siblings. So I'm actually super excited excited to talk about this. Yvonne and I, when we were brainstorming, like we were like, oh my gosh, we could talk about this and this and this. And so like, this is a really
We were
rich
on
topic.
for an hour. I'm like, okay, this is a great topic because it's so relevant to everybody.
But that's been a really cool thing. You talk about having an adult child. My relationship, or not my, but my kids' relationships, and like how excited my son is when his sister comes home, and like how they're like, where before they kind of took each other for granted, and now just how much more they appreciate each other. That's been a really cool side of like that I did not anticipate, that, you know, they really, their relationship's a lot stronger now, I think. Did
Oh my
you
gosh, my other boys would like cheer when Ethan would come home. Like he's, because on the tracking app, it tells you when they're about to approach the house, and they're like, he's here, he's here. It was so cute. Like it's so, now forget it, but in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess parents, you guys are a very quiet bunch today, which is totally fine. But to sum up, you're dealing with senioritis right now. It's a lot. Some of you may be questioning whether or not they're going to make it over that finish line.
Been there.
And because I really can't be like, don't worry, they're going to make it, because honestly, some kids don't make it. We have plans in place. We will get them, like, we'll figure out what to do at that point. And we'll help you through that. If you are in that position. So don't panic if you end up in that position. It's going to be okay. But, you know, so they do need support right now in getting over this last hump. They have a month left of school. Graduation is exactly 4 weeks from today. So, yeah. And, so if you're pulling your hair out because of your senior right now, that's normal. And
that was so stressful because English is one of those classes you have to pass. And up until probably a couple days before graduation, we were floating around a D- and F. And we finally got to the point where we're like, okay, he's probably going to graduate. But then I found out that if he didn't have a C, the college could rescind his offer, and this whole thing, it was like chaos. And the teacher was out sick and I didn't know. So it was just like, man, what an awesome day it was to find out that I never thought it would come down to that, just one class. And it was so stressful. And they typically pull it off. They know what they have to do, but they just want to give us gray hair before they do it. So
yes.
And again, if they don't, we got good plans in place. So
it's kind of like that last challenge. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, some things to do this summer with them, like I said, teach them some easy things to make, you know, some cooking. I would say another thing I would add is make sure you've taught them how to deal with money and how to avoid scams and things like that. And being responsible with money, and not taking out 1,000 credit cards. You know, when they go away to college, like there's going to be all these advertising for credit cards and things like that, and a lot of kids can get into some financial trouble. So,
and teach them how to clean a bathroom.
Yeah.
Definitely teach it. That's part of their responsibilities in the dorm. My son got stuck in a dorm with 7 other guys, and none of them knew how to clean a bathroom. So being the social worker that I am, I marched myself down there and gave them a lesson, and it was quite hilarious. We talked about alcohol, how to clean a bathroom, consent, all the things. It was kind of fun. I was happy my boy let me do that. But teach them how to clean a bathroom. Learning to drive. Did you teach them yourself? Did you use driving school? I did both. I didn't really have the patience. My husband actually taught my kids how to drive. We did use the driving school. That was super helpful because being in the passenger side of a kid that doesn't know how to drive is one of the most terrifying experiences of your life. So if you don't have a strong heart or you have high anxiety like I do, pass that job off.
Yeah. I did not teach my daughter how to drive. I actually been thinking about this. My son's turning 14 in a couple weeks, and I've been thinking about like, I have a different relationship with my son. I was like, I wonder if I'll be able to do it with Nathan, because I could not do it with Hannah. She stressed me out so much. And we didn't actually send her to driver's school because Hannah waited. She didn't want to learn to drive until she was like getting close to 18, which was
Okay.
right when the pandemic was happening.
Oh.
And so we weren't able to do a driving school. So my mom actually taught her before my mom got sick. And so I'm very grateful that because my mom did a great job. So yeah, you can get somebody else to do it, but that panic. I remember my daughter and I were driving around and we were looking at junior colleges in the area. And so we were driving around, we were on 280 and she was driving because we were driving from Foothill up to the College of San Mateo. And so we were on 280. I didn't know you could sweat from the bottom of your feet, but I was because I was so nervous. And she was like, stop grabbing the door. And I was like, oh God.
I love this. You must love your kids more than your life to sit on the passenger seat when they're learning how to drive. 100%.
Yeah.
It's
The honest,
awful.
it was the most terrifying experience.
And then I'm sure my yelling and screaming is not helpful in keeping him calm.
Yeah.
It's
So if
all
you are
bad.
not the person that can be calm and like not grab the side of the door and freak out, find
No.
somebody else to do it.
Yeah, sweat from the body. I forgot about that. That was horrible. I have my middle one now was about to start driving, and I'm like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah. Terrifying.
It does get better though, because I did allow my oldest to drive me to Santa Cruz not too long ago, and he did fantastically. But yeah, in the beginning, whew.
Yeah. Now, I mean, yeah, now it's fine. Like once she's learned, it's fine now. I have no problem being in the car with her. But wow, that first time on 280 with her, and then we got to the College of San Mateo and like we walked around, we looked at it, and I was like, how about I drive home? Because I
Can't take it anymore. Your heart can only take so much. That was a good plan.
Okay, parents, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you found this helpful today. Just enjoy this time. This is a great time. You're gonna experience all the feelings and just enjoy them because it goes by so fast. So just enjoy all the feelings as you're experiencing them. And so next week we are going to talk about siblings. Give you all the dirty laundry between me and my brother. Rupert, you too, be prepared. All right, guys, have a wonderful week. Okay. All right, bye.